Struggling with strings that break mid-song or just don't give your Strat the tone it deserves? I've identified the 5 Stratocaster strings that genuinely excel in tone, durability, and playability. Our comprehensive testing process, which includes weeks of playing different genres and analyzing tuning stability and sustain, has revealed exactly what makes the best Stratocaster strings stand out from the hundreds of options on Amazon. Each set has unique characteristics that could be perfect for your playing style, so make sure to watch the complete list. You'll find all the links with the best updated prices in the description. Here we go. Starting off, we have the D'Addario XS electric guitar strings in 10 to 46 gauge. And what caught my attention was how they claim to solve the biggest frustration for Strat players: constantly changing strings. These use this ultra-thin XS film coating that D'Addario says makes them their longest-lasting electric strings ever. What's interesting is they've reformulated the nickel-plated steel wrap to give you that bright Stratocaster tone you're after. You get more output, more bite, and better sustain without sacrificing clarity. In my testing, I noticed the coating doesn't mess with the natural feel like some coated strings do. It actually makes them smoother and faster under your fingers. Now, the tuning stability is where things get really impressive. They use this NY steel core combined with something called fusion twist technology. D'Addario claims these stay in tune 131% better than standard strings. If you're using your tremolo a lot, that's a huge deal. During use, I found they hold pitch remarkably well, even after aggressive bending. What I really appreciated is that the coating prevents corrosion without deadening the tone. You know how some coated strings can sound dull right out of the package? These don't have that problem. They maintain that bright Strat character while actually lasting longer. The 10 to 46 gauge is that regular light setup, so it's comfortable for most playing styles without being too floppy. Additionally, each set comes with a code for D'Addario's Players Circle Rewards program, which is a nice bonus if you're already a fan of their products. They're made in the USA at their New York facility, which speaks to quality control. What really convinced me was the combination of longevity and tone. You're not sacrificing sound quality for durability, which is usually the trade-off with coated strings. One consideration is that if you prefer a warmer vintage tone, these might be a bit too bright for your taste. They're definitely voiced for that classic punchy Strat sound. Link is in the description. Next up is the Elixir electric guitar strings light 10 to 46. And what really stands out here is the approach to longevity. These use Elixir's polyweb coating over nickel-plated steel, and it's designed specifically to protect against sweat, humidity, and corrosion. If you're someone who hates changing strings constantly, this is worth paying attention to. The tonal character is different from what we just looked at. Where those D'Addario strings lean bright and punchy, these Elixirs give you a warmer sound right out of the package. You still get clarity and sustain, but it's a more rounded tone that works well if you're after that classic Strat voice without excessive brightness. In my testing, the warmth holds up remarkably well over time, which is the real advantage here. What I found interesting is how the polyweb coating affects playability. It creates this slick, fast surface under your fingers. Some players love it because it reduces friction, especially during longer sessions. The 10 to 46 gauge keeps things comfortable without feeling too loose, so bending is still easy. The corrosion resistance is where these really shine. The coating acts as a barrier that keeps tone-deadening elements away from the actual string. I've seen these last months while maintaining that fresh string sound, which is hard to match with uncoated options. They're made in the USA with consistent quality control, which you can feel in the reliability. What really convinced me was how they balance comfort and longevity without killing your tone. One consideration is the coating does create a different tactile feel, so if you're someone who prefers that raw, uncoated string sensation, it might take some adjustment. Link is in the description. At number 3, we have the Ernie Ball Cobalt guitar strings in 9 to 42 gauge, and what sets these apart is the cobalt alloy construction. Unlike the nickel-plated strings we've looked at so far, these use cobalt to create a significantly stronger magnetic relationship with your pickups. What that means in practical terms is you get more output and a wider dynamic range right out of the gate. What I noticed immediately was the harmonic response. These bring out overtones and complexity that you just don't hear with standard strings. Notes ring with more sustain and character, especially if you're playing through higher gain settings. The tonal balance is interesting too. You get a really powerful low end without sacrificing clarity up top. The highs are crisp and articulate, so lead lines cut through without sounding harsh. Now, the 9 to 42 gauge is lighter than those 10 to 46 sets we just covered. This is Ernie Ball's super slinky gauge, and if you do a lot of bending or prefer a faster feel under your fingers, this is where it really shines. The lighter tension makes everything feel more responsive without getting floppy. In my testing, I found they're comfortable for extended playing sessions, and they don't fight back when you're working the tremolo. What's interesting is the durability. Even though these aren't coated like those previous options, the cobalt alloy actually holds its tone longer than you'd expect from uncoated strings. They maintain that brightness and punch for weeks, not just days. The wound strings use a tin-plated high-carbon steel core, which contributes to that longevity. What really convinced me was how they balance aggression with clarity. You get that hot, punchy Strat tone without sacrificing definition. One consideration is the price point sits a bit higher than standard nickel strings, and if your guitar already leans bright, these might push it further than you want. Link is in the description. Next up, we have the Strings Dimebag guitar strings in 9 to 46 gauge, and what immediately stands out is this gauge combination. Unlike those 10 to 46 sets we just looked at, these give you lighter top strings with a heavier bottom end. That 9 on the high E makes bending really effortless, while the 46 low E gives you solid chunk for rhythm work. The signature aspect here is interesting because Dimebag was known for aggressive playing, and these are built specifically for that. We're talking string bends, whammy bar abuse, harmonic screams, and heavy riffs. Doctor designed these to handle punishment without losing their integrity. In my testing, they hold up remarkably well to aggressive techniques that would kill standard strings quickly. What caught my attention was the tuning stability claim. They say these stay in tune longer, and honestly, it's noticeable. Even after heavy tremolo use, they settle back to pitch faster than you'd expect. That's crucial if you're diving bombs or doing a lot of vibrato work. Now, the tone approach is different from those coated strings we covered. These aren't coated like Elixir or D'Addario, but DR treats them to stay bright and fresh longer. You get that cutting, articulate Strat tone without the coating feel. They maintain their brightness for weeks, which is the sweet spot between raw uncoated strings and fully coated options. What really convinced me was how they balance playability with power. The lighter top strings don't fight back during leads, but the heavier bottom gives you authority on rhythm parts. One consideration is the gauge split might take adjustment if you're used to balanced sets. And if you prefer a vintage warm tone, these lean brighter and more aggressive. Link is in the description. Before we reveal our number one, be sure to check out the description below for the freshest deals on each of these items. And finally, number one, we have the D'Addario NYXL electric guitar strings in 10 to 46 gauge. And what really impressed me was the engineering behind the strength and tuning stability. These are uncoated strings, which is important because you get that pure, direct tone without any barrier between your fingers and the metal. The secret here is the proprietary NY steel core wire. D'Addario claims these are 40% stronger than standard strings, and they back that up with some serious numbers. You can bend them 2 whole steps higher, and they'll still stay below 75% of their breaking point. In my testing, I pushed these hard with aggressive bends and tremolo use, and they just don't quit. Now, tuning stability is where these really separate themselves. They stay in tune 131%, better than standard strings. We've heard that claim before with some of those coated options, but what's different here is you're getting it without any coating. That means no compromise on feel or that raw string response under your fingers. What caught my attention was the mid-range voicing. They use premium nickel-plated steel that's specifically designed to boost frequencies between 1 and 3.5 kilohertz. That's the range where your guitar cuts through a band mix. You get more presence and crunch without sounding harsh or brittle. During use, I noticed lead lines jump out with more definition, and rhythm parts have this punchy quality that sits perfectly in a dense mix. The 10 to 46 gauge gives you that regular light balance we've seen in other sets, so it's comfortable for most playing styles. What I really appreciated is how they maintain brightness and clarity over time, even without coating protection. They're made in the USA at D'Addario's New York facility. An EATH set includes a code for their Players Circle Rewards program. What really convinced me was the combination of uncoated feel with enhanced durability and tone. You're not sacrificing anything for strength. One consideration is, if you prefer a warmer vintage voice, these lean toward brightness and presence. Link is in the description. Now you know exactly which strings will deliver the tone and feel your Stratocaster needs, without wasting money on the wrong gauge or coating for your playing style. Check the description for all the links with current prices and full specifications. Amazon's string prices change frequently, so grab the best deal while it's available.